Hello.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Decipher Group Chats, Fireside Chats. We had a really rich discussion last week. My name is Ruth Ann Gagnon. I'm here in Chicago. Let Yoli introduce herself.
I'm here. I'm doing all the little tech behind the scenes. I'm like our little
Yeah, you're
squirrel
like,
hamster. I'm like, "Tilililila." So my name is Yoli Maya Ye, and I'm reaching out to you today from Tulum, Mexico, land of Mayan people, great Mayan civilization. And it is beautifully warm here today. There is a breeze. Things are in the flow of the clouds and the sky and the trees and the earth and the deep interconnected web of aquifers below. I think this is a really extraordinary
oh,
place. And I think it's important to go to places that inspire you, that really juice you in your body to access creativity,
yeah.
and to broaden your scope. Right. So I'm here doing that very thing. And we're excited to welcome you into a YouTube chat with us. Today we are Decipher, DEI Cipher, and we want to help you solve the equity puzzle. And we want to do it in a way that is both realistic and non-harming. And we have made some observations since the last time we did a YouTube, which is sometime in January, possibly February even. It's been a little hot minute for us, maybe a month or more. And we're out here, we're talking with people, we're talking with organizations, we're talking with individuals. Ruth Ann and I talk with each other a lot. That's part of our generative creative process. And we've been making some observations, enough of an observation around discomfort that we felt like, you know what, let's get something recorded as a resource, because this is a key and critical topic as individuals and organizations are considering approaching DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, decolonization, anti-bias, anti-oppression work. And we have some legacies of efforts that have been put in, let's say, over the last 4 years that have been both helpful and not helpful at the same time. So we want to talk through some of these things today, some of our observations. We did a fun talk on Instagram last week. If you ever want to bop over there and check that out, all about a meme, a call-in, an act of Afrofuturism and Afro-optimism, as a friend of mine called it, around soft life. What's the call in around soft life? For us, we want to keep it super realistic. If we're talking about soft life, then how do we embrace the hard things? Where is the space for the challenge? And what is this dynamic to be experienced?
Wow. And Yoli, I think what a couple of things that I think really that we really expounded upon last week was, or one of the things that I kind of took away from our conversation was like, it's almost inevitable when we really start to deep dive into soft life and sort of this concept, it's almost inevitable to end up discussing discomfort. Because like, as we really start to process through, we can sort of, I think we had such a powerful conversation around, sort of how soft life can get portrayed on social platforms like Instagram, some of its relationship to capitalism, some of its relationship to it being rooted in Black women as a movement, specifically after, you had done more research about it being from some Nigerian femme influencers. And I think that, through that process, I don't know if we weren't really over planning to discuss discomfort and hard things. But the reality that I think we really started to embody in that conversation was about like, to really be able to feel sort of and receive a soft life and be open to the soft life. Like there is an inevitable conversation around discomfort. And I think that, there's, because it simply on a very like simple level, it's going to just be able to make us feel the most alive, to be able to balance all of these pieces in one sphere of our identity, of our existence. So, that just in
Yeah.
recalling our conversation, I just wanted to name that of like, I think there was, for at least for us, when we think about, we're not interested in singular answers to things. Not like, I think that was another big takeaway, was sort of this like, we need so many different tools to professionally transform, which of course, professional personal transformation, that could be a whole nother conversation to have another day. But like these things very much are so deeply connected, with what we do for our work, our life's work. So it's like, man, I don't know, we just really got to a place of just discussing how important it is to just really feel through all the tools, and doing a hard lean into only soft life of, we're starting to get into some spaces of some bypass. We're starting to get in, there's that difference between restoration and just being asleep, which again, we've talked about in some other conversations about being like, like sleep itself is very important. Restoration and restoration and sleep are not, those are distinctions we want to make here. So yeah, just reminiscent on things there about last week, and
well,
I
there's so much. I like what you're speaking to, about that entry point, about the invitation in, we wrote an article, about some of the important critical aspects around soft life. That's not exhaustive as well. There's more, because where did we pick up soft life? From social media, right? And what is social media's tendency to do is to portray soft life, and this is for folks of the African diaspora, Africa and African diaspora, that the default mode to display soft life is through expressions of wealth and luxury and like the unattainable, and so I'm not going to shut that down. I'm not going to diss that. But if that's what we're going to do, then we need to be talking about wealth paradigm. We need to be talking about consumerism. We need to be talking about spiritual materialism. We need to be talking about chattel slavery, plantation economics. We cannot really and truly have a deep discussion of soft life from any perspective if we're not going to name those things.
Yeah.
Now you can go read the article, because that's not exactly where we wanted to deep dive in today, but I just want to name these things, right? Sometimes I have challenged folks in spaces of like, try to find images online of marginalized people or people with marginalized identities resting. It's really hard, because so long rest has been the domain of those that hold the center space. And in that way, I think it's really important to see images of folks with marginalized identities resting, enjoying luxury, and defining what that means for them.
Yeah.
I would also like to see us move beyond that. I believe that is an entry level. And I like to now see us reach for depth. But we're human, and we experience unpleasant feelings just as much as we experience pleasant feelings. We are complicated by the social construct that we live in that encourages pleasure and comfort. Now, the reality of being a human and the human experience is that in order to experience comfort, like here's the paradox, in order to experience comfort, in order to experience softness, in order to know what that is, you do have to experience its opposite. You have to experience the hard. You have to experience the difficulty. Now, one of these areas tends to inspire growth. But growth doesn't always have to be hard.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what makes paradoxes so hard, that there's no one right answer here. There's no one right way. And that's what you just said, Ruthann. We can't approach the obstacles in absolutes, that we are going to find one right way, that there's going to be one all-encompassing answer to the problem. And then we'll just be able to apply that same answer to all the hard things. It's just not how it works.
This human thing, I tell you. Yeah. I think too, and I think one of the things that's like coming to mind for me as we talk about the need, for us to be fully alive, for us to feel fully human, and for us to really have the kind of depth of personal, professional, individual, group, collective transformation. Yeah, like there can be such a human response to wanting simple, wanting singular answers, wanting to lean into one specific way and being like, oh, well, if one ice cream cone is good, then 10 ice cream cones must be amazing, and we all gotta know that that's not true. And like, without any level of some contrast and sort of, in full ability to kind of like feel the full sphere. Yeah, like we are just kind of putting ourselves into a full-on slumber, not even into just a space of restoration.
Ooh, yeah, that's really a nice analogy.
Like, and so, and I know, I don't know, I was actually listening to a podcast yesterday that was talking a little bit about like what different people do to self-soothe when they are feeling uncomfortable. And it was super fascinating because actually the list of guests on this podcast was pretty diverse in terms of lived experience, in terms of some of the from gender, from race. There was a Buddhist monk on there, who was on the podcast. He was talking more specifically about really processing, not so much that it's not about ever avoiding discomfort, it's about his relationship to it. And I think about that a lot, because sometimes I even think discomfort, and this was really something I thought about listening to the different folks on this podcast yesterday, was that I started to be like, man, feeling discomfort can still trigger a lot of shame and blame on folks. And that was something that was like really honest and beautiful and transparent in this podcast, where the folks on there were super real and very human about being like, I still feel kind of almost upset with myself if I feel discomfort, because I look at it almost as like a sign of weakness.
Ooh.
And I was like, dang, and I don't say, I hope my dang is not in a judgmental way. It was in a really authentic, like, whoo, okay, like, just folks really sharing exactly where they were at that time, which I thought was so important. But it was also bringing voice to an issue that I don't think necessarily is conscious for many folks, or they just they wouldn't want to bring it to voice.
We, Ruthann and I, we talk about shame and blame so much because it's the main obstacle we see for people getting back into DEI space right now.
Yeah.
So whether that's training space, collaborative space, and let's also name that if you are an individual or an organization that is able to choose whether it's in DEI space or not, you are privileged.
Whew.
Let us be very clear about this. If you have the ability to choose to be in DEI space or not, you probably need to be in it.
Ugh.
And there have been some rough goes. There have been successes. There are organizations we talk to that have found successes with their diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives. They have moved needles. They have put policy in place. They have seen cultural shifts. They have seen shifts in hiring. They have seen shifts at the leadership level and C-suite. And yes, yes, and more yes. And also those internal shifts. I really do think that those folks are the exception. I don't think they're the norm, but we need those leaders, people and organizations that are leading by example, that this is possible. Now, for the other, 90% of organizations out there, it's been a really rough go the last few years.
Yeah.
And because of the approaches, the popularized approaches that have been taken, shame and blame is where folks have been left paralyzed, so afraid to act, and definitely resistant to coming back into DEI space. And that was actually the impetus and the inspiration for us wanting to get on YouTube today and talk with y'all about, are you one of these friends right now that is experiencing the grip of the shame and blame, the resulting paralysis, and thus you are not thrilled or motivated to get into DEI learning space or collaborative problem solving space? We want to speak to you for a moment and acknowledge that if that is in fact what you are feeling, that does not make you a bad person.
Oh. Mm.
It makes you human.
It's such a healthy, normal response to not want to keep subjecting yourself or your team or your crew,
Yes.
into another space. Like, we've had conversations, recently I had a conversation with someone who was like, a friend, colleague who, referred me, I needed to go. She was like, honestly, Ruth Ann, initially I was a little bit like, I don't want to look at another one of these DEI websites. Like, she full on, and I was like, dang, like, so appreciate the transparency and the honesty there. And she was like, but I'm so glad I did. She was like, because I was expecting, she's like, I've just been through so many spaces where there's just so much, there's just a paralysis in feeling badly. And let's be real. It's like shame and blame and those really uncomfortable feelings. I mean, we could have a whole nother YouTube about how encouraged it is to stay in those feelings, to stay in that space for this very paralysis that we're discussing in terms of individual, group, collective, cultural policy transformation. Like, it is encouraged to stay small, because that's what shame and blame do. They keep you very small. It's also so common because if that's our default, of course we're going to go back to the default. Like, that's that again, like, that is not anything. Just like you said, there's no badness here, there's no wrongness here. And the good news is that, coming back to singular, we were talking about singular ways. Shame and blame is not the singular way. That is also not a way we want to, that's not the tool we want to lean into. It is, what would it be like to replace that in a DEI design process with empathy and joy? And again, not taking away discomfort, but we were just talking a little bit about like this relationship to discomfort, the ability to try, like, to really metabolize discomfort. Like, dang, I'm into that. I'm into, and it is that, like, we can do hard things, and that is such an important process for us as individuals. It's so important for us as a collective. And it is also from just a very primal social justice perspective. Like, it is just so crucial and necessary and so important to really create true transformation and equity.
Mm. And let's also consider where we have learned, or like mislearned, partially learned, or wrongly learned, or not at all learned these skills,
Yeah.
right? Of how you manage discomfort, how you manage challenge. And we have these narratives that are very hero centered, that you're going to go at it alone, straight up some Joseph Campbell hero's journey stuff. You're going to go at it alone. You're going to toil. You should be at it alone. It should be wildly uncomfortable and painful on all levels: physical, energetic, emotional, mental. You should be scarred by it, and you should celebrate those wounds.
Ooh.
And then once you have succeeded, you are to celebritize yourself in the glorification of what you have done. I gotta tell you, like, being raised in an indigenous context, our thing is like the exact opposite. It's actually all community based. Like, even when you are voluntarily choosing discomfort in order to cry for a vision for the community is back at the branch holding the space for you, because you're up there sacrificing your comfort, your health, your well-being, possibly your life. Like, seriously, to that extent. You're naked on a mountain with a blanket with no food and water. Okay, it's extreme, right? I'm talking about the classic vision quest ceremony, not the neo versions of this and that. I'm talking about the like traditional style. And you got the whole community holding the space for you, because you're there crying for a vision, not for you, for the community.
Yeah.
You're there for healing for the community of which you are a part of. And so, we root our approaches in these indigenous wisdom models, not from a sense of cultural appropriation, from a sense of lived experience and cultural caretaking. And we want to show you how soft life is approachable, and how we can soften into the hard things. So whether this is about receptivity or softness, whether this is about, guess what? You can't approach the hard things when your battery is at 0. And from the context of DEI work, the ridiculous assumption that we could do transformative work at a systemic level when everyone is so tired, and also we have the baggage of never really learning how to approach hard things from anything but hardness.
Oh.
So guess what? We need a little backtrack here. We need a little fill in on some of these tools. But the nature of your human being and body, the nature of your very advanced human mind, is we could get in a type of learning space together where this learning happens actually very quickly. You don't have to spend the next 30 years unlearning and relearning. No, we can come, we have tools to do this, but it's not a 60-minute talk.
No.
It's not even a half-day workshop. It's a longer relating. It takes commitment.
Well, and the thing that especially for those of you who are listening, who maybe are thinking about or have been thinking about, maybe you've contemplated, maybe a little, something, you've been thinking about like, all right, like what can I know some, like I know this isn't quite the right way. Maybe this, these past sort of DEI design experiences or whatever, or there's particular happenings in your workspaces or whatever. The reality is like, and the good news is that like, DEI work in the, and in our world of work, in our path of our life's work, especially in 2023, like it is one of the most powerful ways to create personal, group, collective, company, organizational policy transformation, because it starts with the individual. And it's just as Yoli was saying, it starts with the individual. But again, this process is, and you'll see this even with our domains, we're talking about unlearning, decolonization, we're talking about active restoration, we're talking about creativity, creative solutions, then voicing, messaging, communications, like, and not just those standing alone, but those in intersectional learning spaces, like, starting with you as this individual, and examining these experiences, and then being able to have that not held just by yourself. Again, we're talking about all of these dominant cultural characteristics, the rugged individualism, the defensiveness, the blaming, the shaming. This is all, it is so supported. Guess what? That's not real support. We're talking about like, hey, this is a real space of actual like deep state collaboration, support. We've had, we end up jumping in the deep end of the pool, even in just basic conversations with folks who are interested in, like, we kind of end up jumping into the deep end first. We know that it might feel really a lot, it can be a lot to suddenly be like, wow, I knew this wasn't quite the way, just to speak to it. But the realities of what Yoli's talking about is that that's part of why the unlearning and the relearning doesn't have to take 30 years. It's actually so much more intrinsic and so much more aligned with what it is to be human and experience transformation throughout, our lives. So went on a light tangent there, Yoli, start, but like
not tangent at all. Like it's you're like bang on.
There.
And I just want to repeat something that you said, that DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, is quite possibly one of the only spaces in your organization where transformational work can happen on individual and organizational levels simultaneously. Think about it. Where's another venue? Team volleyball, potluck lunch. You know what I'm saying? Like, really and truly, where does your organization offer actual possibilities for transformation? When is the last time you took a professional development training? You left there and you were like, I'm a different person.
Like, and I'm a different person, and I'm going to go, I got some tools in my tool belt, in my tool satchel, that I'm going to go take back to my community, to my people,
other touch points,
other touch points. And like, okay, I don't know everything. I don't know exactly, that's okay. Again, coming back to like, I had a different conversation with a colleague this week who's like, yeah, like I'm a middle-aged white male. I am in paralysis about what to do. I literally don't, he's like, and sharp guy, successful. It's just like, I don't know what to do. I am not sure what to do. And I don't always even know how to start talking about how to do this. And I was like, yeah, that's what paralysis is.
Yes.
You just, I don't even know what, like, who do I even talk to about this?
Yes.
And that's also, I think, oh, go ahead.
No.
I was going to say just that, like, that's where I see also, like, one thing that I see, especially in like the power of our half-day workshops, which again, as Yoli said, is a real entry point of just starting to really feel even just the potential and the understanding of transformation.
Very important part.
Super important to just feel efficacy, feel like feel possibility.
Yes.
So that's where also like the thing that I think that's so beautiful about it too, and about that form is like, it's also then you've got other folks who are also like, hey, like you've suddenly got a community of folks who are like, oh, hey, I'm not alone in this process. And I have other people that are coming to the same space and coming to the same realizations, and we can do it together.
Yes, yes. And so I think really the last thing I want to come back around to
Yeah.
is an act of futurism.
Mm.
We need to get together in community, even in virtual space, and dream a little. What could this feel like? How would we like this to feel?
Mm.
White, black, brown, blue, purple, green, glitter, neon, however you're presenting. We are all entering this path with needing this act of optimism and futurism. And that's not frivolous. It's not a waste of your time. It's an act of creative restfulness. It's an act of active restoration. And we'd love to do that with you. We'd love you to come hang out with us.
Yeah.
We have retreat space. We have workshop space. We have spaces that we can co-collaborate and customize with you and your organization. And so, our offers are on the table for you to come and commune and learn and grow.
Mm.
Any last thoughts from you, Ruth Ann?
No, I feel very full. I feel very full about what we covered. I'm always appreciate the fullness we can create together. And and I think that's maybe the one last thing to share is like, yeah, we have to practice our space and these domains just as much as anyone else, and we're
we don't get a pass. Oh my God.
like, we don't get a we're not interested in the bypass either, for ourselves. And we have to,
we don't get a pass.
like, we don't get a pass either, I mean, and we don't, and we don't want the pass. None of us really want the pass, even if we think we do, there's a lot more depth and breadth to go from there. So, well, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, friends that are going to watch this. I hope you gain something from it. Don't hesitate to be in touch with us about anything.
Always happy to chat and just feel, even if you're just kind of thinking just a little bit, like, doesn't have to be.
I got like the incense burning. I'm always doing ceremony.
Yeah.
I assume why you guys think I was sitting here like smoking a cigarette or something.
You're like, I got it. It's incense. It's incense.
It's copal. All right, friends. So we'll catch you in the next inspired talk, and we'll see you.